Gfem Talk Show.
Hello, I'm Femi Ogunjimi, the host of Gfem Talk Show. I'm here in downtown Silver Spring at the Civic Center covering the 2013 Biazo Empowerment Career Event. And I gotta tell you, what you're about to see is unprecedented, and the information you're going to hear is impeccable.
There's always an education about social media the same way. It's a passage of life. When you're going through transitions, especially if you've been displaced from a job and you're looking for a job, there are a lot of things going on in your life in addition to you looking for a job. Social media can be a tool instead of a toy. A lot of people use Facebook and they talk about a lot of their personal, but when you're looking for a job, when you use social media, one of the things that is very important is that you have specific keywords that identifies the type of position that you're interested in. Keywords are king. We're in a sound bite era. So the keywords, say 3 or 4 keywords that represent what you're looking for, is going to be your platform as how you go forward with your social media. How do you find your keywords? You go on Google, keyword tool, it's free. And you can either put in a website or a company that you are interested in working for and see what their keywords are. But that is so important and missed many times. One of the things that you can do with social media, and there are millions of people in Facebook, there's over 1 billion people on Facebook. There's almost 200 million people on LinkedIn. These are tools. You still cannot use that to replace the personal relationship, but it can be a tool to help you to connect with other people. In LinkedIn, using the groups is an excellent way of connecting with people that you may not have a direct relationship with.
We have to recognize the fact that the landscape has changed quite a bit to where we have to be considering non-traditional means of finding jobs. And so LinkedIn is great because it is a safe, non-oppressive way to communicate with people. Facebook is horrible. I'm not on Facebook anymore because I got tired of getting poked and joined and unfriended and all those things. But on LinkedIn, you have an opportunity to find someone in an organization that you're interested in working with, and then find a person you know who's connected to them and have the introduction made that way. That's a lot easier than you having to pound the pavement and knock on doors and show up and sort of cold call. And I've used this myself recently where I've been trying to make communication with someone at another organization and just couldn't figure out how to get through to them. It would be rude of me to just pick up the phone and call them, but I found someone in my LinkedIn network who's connected to them and asked if they would make an introduction. So, I throw in my plug for LinkedIn. And the last point on this string really is thinking about the fact that we really do now live in a borderless world. So that if you're thinking about finding a job and you want it to be in Maryland or in Silver Spring, then maybe you have too much of a myopic view. You have to be thinking about employers who are outside of your physical location, but looking for people to provide services from your location. If you think about that a little bit, it's very different from what we were looking at a few years ago. So you can find a company in India that's looking for someone anywhere in the world to provide consulting services by writing reports, through email, or phone consulting. We really have to start thinking about non-traditional ways of broadening our access to job opportunities beyond, looking at the buildings in your immediate vicinity.
When you are trying to introduce yourself, I think it's extremely important to know who you are trying to introduce yourself to. And I'll give you an example. It's a little it's a little pompous, so please excuse me on that. A guy yesterday that I was phoning to get his ideas on possible candidates, I read, firstly I Googled him, so you look him up, you find out his background, and I read through this extraordinary, illustrious list of things that he'd done, and right at the bottom, the final line, it said that, this guy's a French guy, it said that he won the Légion d'honneur in France, which, if you don't know, is an exceptional honor to do. So that was my lead-in with this guy, which was, I don't think I've ever spoken to somebody who has won this or been given this award. Immediately, he's on in a warm place, right? You know who he is, you have done your research. We were mentioning earlier about sending articles on recruitment to a recruiter. Consider also sending articles on the company itself, right? There's been some press announcement, there's been some share price movement, there's been some new product, whatever it may be. The recruiter obviously is or should be reasonably proud of working for their company. So if you introduce yourself by showing knowledge of that company, by showing an awareness of the latest development in whatever field it may be, again, you just Google the company, Weatherford or Boeing or whatever, and come up with something great and send that to them. I say, I saw this and it was fascinating, it was wonderful, and I wanted to see how I might get through the door. The other thing I would mention is, and I don't know why this is the case, I would go back to LinkedIn, sometimes the first email, in fact most often the first email is ignored. And for some miracle reason, the second email gets a far higher connection rate. I don't know why this is, I don't know why people do that, but it just happens, and I can tell you it's time and time and time again that I've earned my money by the second contact. And you don't get rude, right? You don't say, well, what is going on here? Why are you ignoring my communication? You appreciate that they have a lot on their plate, stuff slides off the radar, but the second contact always has a disproportionately higher hit rate of connection, whether you're linking in via a group on LinkedIn, whether you've got their email address, and so forth. That has a higher hit rate. I will say that if you toggle between LinkedIn, so you work out XYZ is a certain company, you can then go and look up how that person's email actually is structured. You know, it could be imf.org and you work out that it's the first letter and the second name at. That can often be better because if you're coming through LinkedIn, you might be going to their personal email address. And they may not look at that with the same sort of view as they would on their professional one. But in any way, that's just a vehicle for getting a message to them. The content sometimes has to be repeated twice, should be pertinent to that recruitment, flatter the organization they work for. Femi mentioned another thing, which I would just, this is slightly off topic, but I will mention it simply because I made a note, a borderless world. Don't think that there aren't organizations out there like the African Development Bank, like the UN, that you can't work for. I mean, getting a foot in the door, that's even more complex, but fortunately Helen's here, so you've got one on the table, and Edith somewhere else, so you've got the World Bank as well. But these are organizations that are actively trying to recruit a broad range of people. So don't ignore that. But yes, in terms of getting a foot in the door, try twice, adjust the content. You don't necessarily have to say anything relevant about yourself at that point, except a broad category of employment. Don't be too specific, otherwise you would be ruling yourself out of a whole bunch of things. But you're trying to engage interest. And if you're building a network, that is how you start, by sitting in the seat of the person you're talking to and asking yourself what interests them.
I find it intrusive and annoying personally when people send me unsolicited email to my work address. One, I'm thinking, I don't know them. How did they get my personal email? So it actually puts me off a little bit versus, so I was listening and I was thinking, oh, that's interesting. And it could be because I work in the defense industry, so security is very important. And I do work with leaders where people send them unsolicited. I think it's something you have to be very careful with. I think there's a very careful balance and turning people off and annoying people. So I think you're safe if you're on a group and you're all on LinkedIn, you're all in the same group, you have a common interest. So I would tend to, my recommendation would be to contact people via that group, because that's where you have that common interest. I think when you go into people's professional email and you don't know them, I think you can infringe on their personal space a little bit.
Ms. Gimba, did you have something to add?
I mean, I agree with both to different extents, actually. Partly because a lot of what I do is talent acquisition. So at any given time, I'm probably recruiting for something. So I guess, with that in mind, I see it a little bit differently. And so for me, when I get an email, an unsolicited email, it could be welcome, provided it's well articulated, it fits into something I'm actually working on, it's a well-qualified candidate, that sort of thing. So it can be welcome if the recipient of the email is somebody that's actually acquiring talent and actively acquiring in areas that you're seeking, of jobs that you're seeking. So it just depends, What I definitely don't pay a lot of attention to and, can be a turn off is when you're sending in CVs unsolicited and they have no relationship whatsoever with the jobs that have been recruited for. Then clearly, it shows that you haven't really done your homework, you haven't done any research. It shows you as potentially being unserious, So, it's just really, it's a very careful balance. And know who you're sending it to. Obviously, you're writing to the HR director. I mean, she's managing a million different things.
I'm going to add to it. My name is Tolu. As Tom was talking, I was thinking about, how do you get recruited when there's no vacancy? And I remember the time when I was heading human resource in a commercial bank, and a gentleman came up and he said, that he had asked for an interview over and over. Well, not an interview, a meeting actually. He didn't call it an interview. And out of curiosity, I finally saw him. And when he spoke to me, he told me about my department, which I thought was a surprise. And he told me about how he felt, that department should be run today, in terms of best practice HR. And my ears just perked up, because exactly what he was saying was exactly what I was thinking about, how to reorganize this department to be a lot more meaningful to the business and so on and so forth. We had no vacancy, I hired him. So there's something about being very creative, there's something about being very bold. A lot of times we're very timid, there's a lot of fear in us, but we need to make sure that we're allowing our talents to come out, we're allowing people to see how we can add value. There was someone who came to talk about network, and you'll probably hear a lot more about that later on, and he says, don't network, connect, work. So make sure that when you meet people, don't just tell them about how you want to work with them. Focus more on how can I be of value to your organization? What do you do? How do you do it? And and on there, right there and then you could give a CEO coaching advice as to how to turn around the business, and you may be hired even when there's no vacancy. So thank you.
Excellent. My name is Vatcher. Sorry. I want to know, how do you use those networking tools when searching for a federal or government job? And also, my second question is, what's your opinion on temp agencies, and how do we use temp agencies as a recruitment tool to get our foot in the door?
Okay, I'll tackle the second question first about temporary agencies. A lot of organizations typically have an arrangement for temporary resources. We do have my organization, and I'm guessing that many others also do. So typically there might be an in-house pool, but if there isn't, there are arrangements already in place with certain agencies on a sort of special provider basis. So that's usually a good way to come in and temp a little bit, get some work done, figure out what you really want to do, and do it really well. So I've seen it really work with certain people. When you come in as a temp, I think it's really important to really, really make a difference. You have to almost look at it. It can't just be a job for you when you have to have a clear plan of where you want to go. And I think that you should have a sense of, you should almost see your career as a business and figure out how you really want to manage it. Now, if you're just coming out of school and maybe you're just looking for your first or second job, you might not have figured all that yet. So temping can sort of help you, I think, ease you into the workplace in that sense. But I think that you just have to, I think you have to also remember that temping is exactly what it is. It's a temporary job. There's no automatic assumption of it translating into something different or more permanent. But the best people will always, employers will always find a way of keeping the best people. There's always a way. So I think that if you're coming as a temp and you know what you really want and you can do it really, really well and you can connect with the right people and showcase what you've got, I think that typically if the employer really wants to keep you, they will find a way to keep you. I think that's what I would say on that.
Hi Dennis, how are you doing today?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I just listened to your panel discussion. Very, very informative and engaging.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. You said a lot of thought-provoking statements. And one of them that jumped to my mind, you said, on social media, you should give out 15 times something to help someone else before you ask someone to help you.
That's right.
Explain, why? What is the reason for that?
Well, we come from the old school of emails where you're just sending out email blasts and you kind of sit and wait. And what that does is it conditions you to only have a one-way communication. Mm-hmm. So in the process of you actually, say if you have a LinkedIn account, you would actually, and you're looking for a position, then you would look at articles and write things that are interesting to the population that you're connected to in LinkedIn or in LinkedIn group. So you would send these out about 15 times over the course of a month. That process is doing a lot of things under the wire that you don't realize. First of all, it's changing your mindset of what can I give out. Because when you come to an employer, they want to know what you're going to do for them. So you've kind of conditioned yourself to think of things that are going to be valuable to other people. That makes you more viable. It's just a mindset. Also, it keeps you current with what's going on in the industry right now. That you'll be able to parlay into your interviewing process. And it also helps you to pace yourself to, when you're going through a transition in a job or you've been displaced, there are a lot of things that are going on other than you just getting a job. The question is should you get another job, or should you start your own consulting business, or should you look broader or globally? Should you, you have a family, you have children, you have bills to pay. There's a lot of things going on there. So to take all of the gray minutia going on, if you can sit down and write 15 different articles or posts about your passion to other people who will benefit, it changes the whole mindset of what you're doing. And it's going to put you where you need to be so much faster than just doing the traditional thing of sending a resume and sending it out to everybody.
And speaking of mindset, I know you said earlier, attitude determines your altitude.
Yes.
And you should include your attitude in your correspondence.
Be kind. Always be mindful of how you, even when you're coming in the door here, be kind, be pleasant, be open to getting along with people. Because in the old days, you could be kind of gruff and you could still keep a job. It's not like that anymore.
I'm standing next to the IMF executive recruiter, Tom Vatcher. Tom, thanks for being here.
Good afternoon. Well, thanks for talking to me.
You're quite welcome. I enjoyed your panel discussion, and you shared a lot of pragmatic information on how to get your foot in the door.
Yep.
Part of what you said is, share knowledge that you know something about the company.
Yep.
Maybe it's an article about them that you just want to, relate back to them, that you have adequate knowledge about what's going on in the company. And I think that's very important for people to know if they're looking for a job, if you want to get their foot in there. Another thing that you said about the resume is also that you should not have any blank thing on your resume. What exactly do you mean by this?
What I mean by that is that for some people, this has been a very tough economic period, and for some people, they've been out of work. For those that are out of work right now, my advice is do something. By this I mean not necessarily paid, ideally it's paid, but something that may be part-time as well, particularly if you're caring for children, something that proves and is aligned to what you ultimately want to do. And here you would simply list the activity. You would also try and combine that with, if you had a LinkedIn profile, and I recommend a LinkedIn profile, you would try and combine that with somebody saying thank you on LinkedIn for it, because that validates that you've been doing something. And I remember when I started my firm, what I wanted people to know was that it was a professional firm, a professional recruiting firm. And the best way I could think of that being achieved was by having people who were clients, initially very small pieces of work, but they were saying thank you for those pieces of work and we recommend Tom do more. And this is the model that I would suggest others adopt, in the sense that it absolutely validates what you are doing.
That's a great nugget. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
So you've been working in this field for over 6 years.
Yes.
What have you learned?
Well, I've learned that people, no matter where they are in their career, are just looking for guidance. And I've learned that, whether you're a CEO of a company or whether you're a student just leaving college, it's really about how do I, assess who I am in relation to what's out there and how to get a job. Most people I find walk in and they say, I want a job, but they don't, number one, how to market themselves. They don't know who they are. So if I say I need a job as an IT specialist and my resume has, customer service or business manager and that kind of thing all over it, then there's no consistency there.
Right.
So it's really about knowing who you are. I don't care how many years of experience you have in terms of what you want to do in your next step.
So you gotta know who you are.
You gotta know who you are.
And you have to be able to convey that in your resume.
Exactly, and not just your resume, your entire career portfolio, your cover letter, your reference sheet, so have employers that are relevant to that particular field, all that kind of good stuff, your sample writing. So there should be consistency from, what you're looking for to what your documents are saying.
I know during your session, you mentioned something that's very, profound, that asset first over liability. Hey, explain that.
Most people will literally have irrelevant work history, but they'll apply for a position that they know that's not consistent with what they've done. So they'll use a chronological resume, chronological format, and their first job will say Safeway on it, retail. And they're applying for a job in business management that's completely different than retail. They'll put their work history first.
Right.
And not focus on their skills. So I would recommend a functional resume format. That way they can focus on their skills and then always, put their work history last. So let's say you've done business management in your career, you've done customer service and that kind of thing. Project management is great. You highlight those skills before you put that irrelevant work history. So the liabilities are your work history in chronological order. And then the assets are your skills. So you put your assets over your skills. Let's say you have a high school diploma and you don't have a degree, but you're applying for a position that requires at least an associate's. Your education will be a liability. You put that education last.
Man, it's good talking to you. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Interesting thing about networking, because I know that's one key component to getting a new job, or even when you leave your job, want to transition from one job to another job. So networking is good. I've been told a couple times what people need to do is join different clubs, join different organizations. It's like you are investing, and then when that opportunity comes, you're already there. You're already in position for it. But the problem that I see with people is they don't know how to start a conversation. They don't know how to get it going, even when they start it. So what do you have to say? What kind of advice do you have for people?
I think for me, it's there are a lot of different things you need to consider. Like you said, it's one of the ways to get a job, keep a job, start a business, keep your business. But at the same time with networking is you have to prepare for it. You have to be deliberate about it. If you don't prepare or have a goal, you would only start reaching out to people when you need them. But I think the biggest thing is breaking the ice and getting into networking with people, but also keeping up with it. So follow up, like I said earlier on today, strike when the iron is hot. When you meet someone, follow up with them. That's the first thing. But also keep relevant information give more than you take. So most people meet someone that's relevant or useful to them, and they just keep asking for favors. But it's about building relationships, so it becomes something that you have to give time to build trust. And you also give information, exchange ideas, and also sometimes introduce people to other people.
Absolutely. I quite agree with you. So it's not about just asking. You also need to give as well. Standing next to Sherry, one of the participants for the networking session for success. What do you think about that session?
I think it was actually really great. Everything I've learned today was a lot of information that I already knew, but it was great to kind of, I guess, reinforce a lot of the points that the different seminars made. Right. And I really came away knowing, having a plan. Especially with the career industry the way that it is now, it's really important to have a plan, and I got a lot of tools today to help me with the resources and the different things that I need to be able to build that plan.
Do you have any major highlights from all the different components of the event today?
I really enjoyed the panel actually from this morning. The speakers there had a lot of information and a lot of knowledge that I felt that I came away with that I'm kind of excited to be able to apply in my personal career.
Yeah, because having knowledge without application of it is nothing.
Exactly.
Shred proofing your resume session was a very informative section. I learned how to really drill down on my resume because my resume, it has a lot of information, but it's all over the place. But Darren Cox was able to give us the 3 different types of resumes: the chronological resume, the functional resume, and the combination resume, which is a combination of the chronological and the functional resume. And that really gave me an insight, a vivid perspective on what I should be doing to really market myself, to really brand myself in the career world.
Earlier, because I attended that session as well, and I heard a lot of good things about you. I know you're into IT field, and you're a project manager?
Yes, I'm currently a project manager, working with a consulting firm. And currently right now, I also do project management training, and I also teach part-time at one of the colleges in D.C.
Jesus House DC, Jobs Ministry Career Empowerment event, and these 2 lovely ladies just witnessed a powerful event. I just want you to share, just real quick, a couple of things that you gained from any of the sessions.
I attended the networking session. I learned a lot about things that I'm doing wrong and what I need to improve, and also saw other people's weakness, which made me think, I'm not the only one who doesn't know certain things. So it was good. I learned a lot and I connected with a few people. Yeah.
Do you have any fear about networking?
No, I don't have a fear of networking. It's just that I'm not very good at following up after the initial email. Right. So that's one thing I have to work on. Yeah.
So it is important.
They told us that today.
Yes, because they actually echoed that.
Oh, good.
Patrice.
Hello.
What did you gain from today's event?
Just to branch out, think outside of the box, and push that envelope, make those contacts, get on LinkedIn, be proactive and prepare. Know what you are going to speak about and approach it with a positive mindset and attitude that you will go in and build a good relationship with somebody that you'd like to bond and connect with.
Absolutely. Preparation and believe in yourself.
Yes.
2 lovely ladies here. They are the brains behind this event, and they've done a remarkable job. I mean, I was here last year, and this year is even way bigger and better. What are the things or the adjustment that you guys made to the planning?
Well, this year we changed the venue, which provided us more space in order to provide more workshops. We've invited panelists, which gave their tips for success, which was really important to see successful people and what they're doing and how we can incorporate it in our own positions.
Thank you. And what is behind the impetus that gets you guys going and fired up every year?
I think for the Jobs Ministry and Jesus House DC as a whole, I think that there's a focus on really enhancing the individual, period, whether it's career or family, whatever might be going on. And for us, you can't be an American and not have a successful career and think you're going to have a successful life. It doesn't work that way. And so it's real. We're all passionate about it personally, and we're passionate about it collectively as well.
This is the land of opportunity, so you got to make the best of it. And thank you for providing the avenue for this.
Thank you very much.
2013 Behazo Conference. This is a career empowerment event put together by Jesus House DC, Jobs Ministry. I've had an awesome time in the presence of most influential people, subject matter experts, even the participants with all different kind of walk of life, different field. They came down here, they listened, they got different information that they can exert into their lives and make them better. I mean, they talked a lot about career development, job search, networking, what you can put on your resume and what you should not include in your resume. This has been such a wonderful event. And if you miss this year event, I will tell you next year, do not try or blink an eye of missing it at all. So I just want to give thanks to Jesus House DC, Jobs Ministry, for having me to cover this event. I'm Femi Ogujimi from Gfem Talk Show, and I will see you same time next year.